Okay, so let's get started. I'm so excited to do this with you guys today. This was really born from a couple of things. Last year, very soon after I started the group, I did a core workshop and a core challenge that went really well, that people really enjoyed. And that really showed me there's a need for core training. It really is integral to everything that we do. And whether that's in athletics, into day-to-day living, into sitting and breathing, it really is important that we have a strong, stable core so that we can continue doing all of the activities that we love to do into a ripe old age. And it's going to help us age better. It's going to keep us pain-free and just living a better quality of life. So let's start with what the core actually is. It is our body's primary support system. And our bodies have basically two skeletons, the axial and the appendicular, which is a really fun word to try and say, right? So the axial is basically your trunk, everything from your head to your hips, which you can't see because I'm sitting on the floor. But basically, you know, your skull, your voice box, your shoulders, your chest, your abdomen, all the way down to your hips. And your appendicular skeleton is your appendages, your arms and your legs that attach to that axial skeleton, to that trunk. So our focus today is going to be that axial skeleton. You have approximately 206 bones in your body. And your axial skeleton comprises 80 of those. So there's a lot of bones in there. And of the 650 muscles that you have, your axial skeleton serves as the insertion point or origin of about 30 of those. So they're in the abdomen, the low back, the pelvis, the hips. So biomechanically, the muscles that attach to the axial skeleton work to transfer forces or loads to and from your extremities. So as you can probably already tell, your core, your trunk is really, really important to so many things. In other words, it's literally the center of your body. It functions to stabilize and protect your spine from excessive load while your arms and legs execute those functional movements. And I already touched upon what some of those functional movements are. They're everything from breathing, from sitting, from me to just sit here and talk to you without falling over requires core strength and stability and endurance. And we'll get into those terms in a few minutes. But everything, like I said, from breathing to sitting to squatting, whether it's loaded or not, lying down, getting back up, reaching overhead and rotating, you know, for something in that cabinet, twisting, bending over to pick stuff up, all of that requires good core function, basically. So in a nutshell, your core is muscles that stabilize our hips, our torso, our shoulders, and let our arms and legs do things with things in them, heavy objects, on a consistent basis, without pain, without fatigue, without poor form. We'll get into those next. And if you're a paddler, which most of you in here are, well, hips, we use our torso, we use our shoulders, we use all those muscles, plus our arms and legs. We're using our full body in paddling. So it makes sense that any training program, but especially a paddling program, starts with the core. And that is one thing I'm super passionate about and really insist on and really advocate for. So we talked a little bit, or I'm the one talking today. I talked a little bit about what a strong core will let us do, but you know, there's more too. Yes, it will help you be a better paddler. It will help you reach and rotate and plant your paddle and have a good catch and be able to maintain pressure all the way through the stroke. But it also will really help with any back pain that you have. If you have lower back pain, especially when you paddle, it could be one of two things. primarily, I mean, it could be a bunch of things, but you either don't have core stability and strength, or you're pulling with your lower back rather than actively using your core and your full body to execute the stroke. So, but off the boat, back pain and core function are like this. They're so intertwined. You've probably heard it, in passing or in training programs or classes. If you have a strong core, you have a strong back, and vice versa. They're just, front and back, side to side. They're right there together. So if you've got low back pain, chances are working on your core is going to really improve that. I'm just looking for comments. I don't see any yet. I didn't see comments this morning either. Facebook had an update, and sometimes I don't see the comments. So if I don't see any, I will look for them later, as I said. So also better performance if you are lifting in a lifting program, which everybody should be doing. And there are, I definitely have opinions on which lift everybody should be doing. There's 5 major ones, but we're talking about the core today. But it will let you lift better and longer and with better form and more power. So having a really strong core will enhance and improve all that. It helps you run better, faster, longer, without pain. It helps you with your posture. And, if you've got a rounded back or you feel like you've got some posture issues, then strengthening your core, working on your core function is really, really going to help that. It helps with balance, it helps with flexibility, and even immunity. So really, again, I just can't stress enough the importance of core health and core training, and really focusing on that no matter what, whether you're exercising or not. So let's get into some of the terminology that gets thrown out there, and I've thrown out some of these words already. Typically, there's 3 words that are attached to core function and core movement, and that's core stability, core strength, and core endurance. And sometimes they're used interchangeably, but they're really different things. They are not the same thing. So let's start with stability. Core stability is the ability to maintain your balance without falling over and to keep your position and posture stable. So for an example, if you're doing a single leg deadlift or even just standing on one leg, if you can't execute that movement without wobbling, without having to put your foot down, then you have a core stability issue that needs to be addressed before you move on to other things. Core strength, on the other hand, is the ability to repeat dynamic core-involved movement without compromising your form. So for example, a V-up, you're lying flat on the floor and you want to bring your arms and legs together in a V. That was a terrible demonstration. I can't think and execute at the same time. It's a problem I've always had. But anyway, it's the ability to repeat that dynamic core-involved movement without losing form. So without crunching over or hunching over or having to bend your legs or some other accommodation to make it easier. Core strength allows you to keep executing those movements without compromise, essentially. And then core endurance is really about holding a position while resisting fatigue for however long is required. So think of a plank. How long can you hold a plank for? Now, I'm definitely not advocating you going for beating the Guinness World Record for holding a plank, which I believe is around 8 hours now. That's just stupid. Nobody needs to hold a plank for 8 hours or even 8 minutes, but you should be able to hold one for a minute or two quite easily without sagging, without your hips coming down or having to arch your back and sticking your bum up in the air without bending your knees, all that stuff. You should be able to have a really nice, strong plank without sacrificing form to fatigue. So that's the 3 basic definitions: core strength, core stability, and core endurance. But in reality, those 3 aspects, those 3 terms are not isolated. Our bodies, are multifunctional. Movements are multifunctional. We never really move just one thing or one muscle at a time. So when the core functions, it's usually got 2 or even 3 of those elements or aspects involved at the same time. So for example, that single leg deadlift we talked about, it's a dynamic movement because you're moving up and down, you're lifting the leg off the floor, you're reaching forward, you're bending over at the same time. So that requires both core stability, so you don't fall over, and endurance, so you can keep repeating the movement without sacrificing form, right? V-ups require strength and endurance at the same time. You want to be able to have the strength to repeat the motion, and you want to be able to have the endurance to keep going. An active plank, for example, an active plank, which I think is the best plank and the type of plank everybody should be doing. So when you're in your plank position, whether you're on your forearms or on your extended arms or on your hands, if you imagine there's a big crack in the earth and you're spanning this divide, and as you're in your plank position, you tighten your core so that you can actively imagine pulling your hands and your toes together, or your forearms if you're on your elbows, to kind of try and bring that crack back together, to remove the crack, to make the earth whole again. That is an active plank, and that fires everything in your core from top to bottom and from your head to your toes, actually. And if you're doing it right, you probably can't do it for more than 20 or 30 seconds without starting to shake and feeling like you're going to flop to the floor and release. So if you've never tried an active plank before, you will be trying it in your 5-day challenge that starts tomorrow if you choose to accept the challenge. But try it. It's a game changer for the plank. So what is the goal of our core training other than what we already talked about, full body strength? It's not just about 6-pack abs, and a lot of core programs out there advertise this and promise it, which is a bunch of bullshit. You can't deliver 6-pack abs in 30 days unless you're already lean. But if you're like most of us humans, you have a little pudge, a little fluff around the belly, working just core exercise is not going to make that go away and reveal these abs magically. That's not to say we shouldn't aspire to have them. I mean, we all we all have different aesthetic mindsets and what we want. I'm working on having 6-pack abs, but that is not my primary goal. My primary goal is to have a healthy body so that I can keep doing what I love, which is paddling my ass off any chance I get. But also I'm preparing for grandchildren within the next couple of years. I want to be able to lift those little suckers up and play with them in the air and all that stuff. So really the focus and the purpose of core training is to have stability and muscle stiffness for the entire body, so that the entire body has the capacity to resist and accommodate internal and external loads. Now, this is not muscle stiffness that you experience after a workout, for example. It's really, that's a completely different thing. It is about the muscles being stiff enough to resist those loads that you throw at your body on a daily, hourly, minute by minute basis, okay? So overall, strength is the ability to repeat movements similar to core strength. When it's related to the full body, it's the ability to repeat movements consistently without pain or compromising form. And if you've ever done any lifting program, ever had a personal trainer, you know that form, a good personal trainer, I should say, because we're not all equal. There are some that definitely do not monitor form as well as they should, but a good, reputable personal trainer will never let you sacrifice form for extra weight, extra reps, any of that stuff, because that's a recipe for injury. That's short-term or long-term. And some injuries, those of you who have ever had a shoulder injury, or a knee injury or an elbow injury, you know, those things take forever to heal. And it's fucking awful to be sitting there and not being able to train, to race, to do whatever it is that you love to do. So it's really about being able to do those movements, strength of the full body without pain or compromising form. Full body endurance, similar to core endurance, is to be able to hold positions without succumbing to inordinately early fatigue, muscle fatigue. So just like we want to build core endurance so that we can hold a position, your full body does the same thing, or you want it to be able to do the same thing. And having a strong and stiff core is just so crucial to everything. It's engaged in every plane of motion. And it should be, like I said, the basis of any training program. And it's why I teach core first in my lifting program. Before I even let anybody pick up weights, they have to be able to show that they're stable, they have a strong core, and that they can actually progress to lifting weights and adding load to their movement. So let's get to the fun part then, which is the core training itself. How do we actually do it? How do we train the core? What muscles out of those 30 that I talked about should we actually focus on? And I see 5 of you on here. That's awesome. Hi, I can't see who you are. Can you drop a hello in the comments? Let me know. That would be awesome. I love to know who I'm talking to. Especially what's talking your mouth off. But which of those 30 muscles should we focus on when we're training our core specifically? Well, it's 6 in particular out of those 30. 4 of them are trunk flexors, which allow you to do the crunching movements, the compacting, the making yourself smaller movements. And 2 are trunk extensors, which allow you to do the opposite, right? To stretch out, to uncrunch, in for want of a better word, to extend. So the trunk flexors are our rectus abdominis, which is right in the middle, our internal and external obliques, and our transverse abdominis, which is, you know, more, so basically from the outside, from the inside, as I watch myself on the screen, I get all caboodled. From the inside out are our trunk flexors. And then the 2 trunk extensors are basically the erector spinae, which is they're muscles, they're long muscles that originate near your sacrum and extend all the way vertically up your back. And then the multifidi, which fill in the grooves on either side of the vertebrae. So again, long muscles. So extensors and flexors are the muscles that we want to focus on in our core training. Now, before you begin any kind of training program, whether it's just the core muscles, so if you think of crunches and sit-ups, we don't typically warm up for those, right? I mean, I'm sure you've seen people go to the gym too and just go straight over to the bench, straight over to the kettlebell rack, straight over to the cable machine and just start going at it. Not a good idea. You should always warm up whatever type of movement you're going to do. And an ab workout, a core workout is no exception. So if you need help with a warm-up program, shoot me a note. I'm happy to help. I have a couple in my full program as well that, you know, if you decided you wanted to work with me, you would have that available. But in a nutshell, you want to make sure you're doing a dynamic workout. You're not doing just static stretching before you do any type of exercise, whether it's loaded or not. You really want to just get your body moving, your arms and legs moving, your muscles hydrated, all the juices flowing, everything just progressively getting warm. So running on the spot, burpees, you know, whatever can get you, a little bit of rowing, a little bit of walking on the treadmill, a little bit on the elliptical, all those types of movements that get everything going, some rotational movements, axe chops, all that kind of stuff are really going to make your workouts better, reduce your risk of injury, and allow you to perform better as well. So always warm up. Next, we want to look at core training in terms of 5 new terms, new vocabulary. So we have stabilizing exercises, we have static exercises, and we have dynamic exercises. And within those 3, they also fall into 2 additional categories, which are bracing exercises and hollowing exercises. And let's just go into those a little bit. First, the stabilizing exercises. And these are the ones that everybody should begin with, whether you're an experienced exerciser, whether you think you are, next level or not, whether you're returning to exercise after injury or a hiatus or retirement, whatever you want to call it. Whoops. Hey, Megan, nice to see you. I'm sorry, I've got volume issues over here. I see Sandy here too. Hi, ladies. So stability is where you really want to begin. And in the challenge, you're going to start doing some of these. You can practice them today after this video. We're going to go through several of them, and actually in all the categories. But what's really important to remember is that these exercises, these stabilizing exercises, they seem easy, but they're very powerful. And they need to be done slowly. And if you don't do them slowly, if you rush through them, you're going to miss the entire point, and you're not going to actually get the benefits of that stabilization that they are intended for. So, resist that temptation to, and this is something that is near and dear to my heart. I have a really hard time standing still and following instructions and being patient. So I get that, I really get that, but resist that urge to rush through it. Take your time and do it properly. And if it seems too easy, even though you feel like you're doing it slowly, just slow down a little bit more. You'll add a little resistance, you'll add a little extra challenge to it. And that is exactly what you want. If you have balance issues, you need to address those first. And these exercises will help there as well. And just like weightlifting, when you're trying to progress to heavier and heavier loads, you build up to them. It's the same with core training. You start at the bottom first, you stabilize your body, you stabilize your muscles, and then you build from there. So that would be my goal for you, is do them slowly, do them with purpose and with mindfulness and intention. Okay, so the first exercise in our stabilizing segment is the pelvic tilt. And of course, I forgot to bring a hand towel, but you're going to do this with a hand towel. And you're going to lie down on your back. And I'm just going to use, look, I got a little strap, a little band. You're going to lie down on your back, feet flat on the floor, and you're going to put the hand towel right about your lower back, right above your butt crack, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to exhale and tilt your pelvis up so that you're placing or pressing your lower back to the floor. And the test for this to see if you're doing this right is you're going to put a little tug on that towel or that band or whatever you have right there. If it stays solid, if it's not moving, you are tilting your back properly, or tilting your pelvis, I should say. If it comes out, that means you haven't pressed your back to the floor adequately, and you need to just give it another go, okay? So that is a really good exercise to start with. And it's also a good warm-up exercise just to sit there and tilt your pelvis up and down. But put that towel underneath and see if you can press it to the ground. So when you first put it in there, it should have a little bit of give because you haven't pressed your back to the floor yet. You haven't tilted your pelvis. But as you tilt and press your back to the floor, that towel should not move. A hand towel, kitchen towel, a t-shirt, something small, not a big piece of fabric. Like I just did this with a mini band, it will work. To progress from that, that would be level 1. And in my program, I teach 5 progressions, so there's 5 levels. But we're just going to do 2 here today, otherwise we'd be here all day. The progression for this is you're going to put that towel back under your lower back, right above your butt, and you're going to tilt your pelvis, and you're going to lift one leg and then the other. And the same goal here applies. You want to make sure that that towel or that band, whatever it is that you've tucked under your back, doesn't move, okay? So that is your pelvic tilt. So the level 1 is just both feet flat on the floor. You're exhaling, tilting your pelvis up to press your lower back down onto the floor. Level 2 is you do it with alternating single leg tucks. So one leg up in the air adds a little bit of instability, which we'll get to also, but makes it just a little bit more challenging. All right, the next exercise is a bird dog. And this is also a fantastic warm-up exercise. So what you're gonna do here to prep yourself, you're going to get into a table position. So you're gonna have, see, what are these things called? Hands. Hands and knees on the floor, knees about hip width apart, hands about shoulder width apart, right under your shoulders, okay? And what you wanna do to set yourself up is you're just gonna lift your knees and hands up and down a little bit to sort of set yourself into the right position. And from here, level 1, or even just to if you've never done this before and you're working on those balance issues, just see what it feels like. Just lift and reach one arm, and point it straight forward as if you're reaching to the other side of the room. You're gonna feel your spine lengthen, and then the other. And you're gonna feel that your weight shifts from one knee to the other. Second is you can just try, move forward a little bit, you can just try with your legs. Just extend one leg and extend the other. And what you want to make sure that you do is that your hips aren't moving side to side. So from the front, you don't want to, you can't see it from that position, but you don't want your hips to travel. You want your hips to square and neutral about the same angle from the ground. It is going to change just a little bit. You're going to get a little bit of rotation, a little bit of movement in there because of physics. Your body isn't rigid, it's flexible, but you want to make sure that your hips stay as straight and as neutral as possible in that same position to the floor without twisting and rotating too much. When that feels comfortable, then you lift opposite arm and opposite leg. You lift them as much as they can go and stretch them to the opposite walls. It's almost like you're trying to reach both walls at the same time. And then reach the other side, and you're alternating like this. So keep your chin up, look forward, don't look down. Keep looking forward and keep lifting and extending. Level 2 from here is adding a little crunch as you come on the return. So you extend opposite arm and opposite leg, hold it for a count of 1 or 2, and you should do that. I missed telling you that in the first one. And then on the return, you don't just come back to this position, you do a little crunch right here. Bring the knee and the elbow together and then extend again, okay? So 1 rep here is a full extension, a crunch, and then another extension, okay? Extend, crunch, extend again, that's 1. Or you can just do them all on one side. So extend, crunch, and then switch and do the other side after you've done all your reps on the one side, okay? So that is your bird dog. Opposite arms, opposite legs. Nice stable position to start with. Hands under your shoulders. Set yourself a little to make sure that you're in the right position, and then just take it slow. And that's your bird dog. Then is our dead bug, which looks deceptively easy. But, and look, I'm out of breath and I just did like nothing, right? The dead bug, you're going to be on your back, knees bent, feet flat on the floor. And again, just like with the bird dog, you set yourself up and try it and go slow. So first, we're just going to lift one leg and tap your heel down and see how that feels. And then the other, and notice what your body does, how it adjusts, how it compensates for you removing an anchor point, which is one of those legs. Then we try it with our hands up in the air as well. And we lift our feet off the floor. So we look like a little dead bug. That's where the name comes from. So in this position, you're going to drop opposite arm and opposite foot to the floor. Tap them at the same time, and then use your core muscles to lift your appendages back up. And to make this a little harder, you're going to keep your legs straight, and you're going to do it. Oops, I have a ball in the way. So opposite arm, opposite leg to the floor, up and down. And that is your basic dead bug. Okay? Again, really important to keep it slow, controlled, make sure you're breathing, and that you're not rushing through it. So those are our stabilizing exercises. And I probably should have done this first, but I want to let you know about bracing and hollowing, which are really, really important to core exercises. In a lot of programs or with a lot of exercises, it used to be common, and it still is to some extent, that people tell you to, suck in your belly button, and that is how you engage your core. And there's a lot of terminology here that's confusing as well and used interchangeably. Engage your core, activate your core, contract your core. There's a multitude. But what the hell does that actually mean? Like, engage my core? I think it's engaged. How do I know, right? So bracing and hollowing are the two ways to activate and engage your core. The first one, bracing, is what you want to do for the majority of exercises. And bracing is as simple as, imagine you needed to prepare yourself for a punch to the belly, right? You're going to push your belly button away from your spine. You're going to tighten this whole area and brace yourself for that punch. So you can try this. Stand tall. I'm not going to stand. I'm going to do it kneeling because there's no room here. I'd be off camera. But put your fingers about 2 to 3 inches from your belly button and just push in slightly. Okay, not to hurt yourself, or it doesn't have to be a hard, intense push. And now you're going to focus on your belly button and push that abdominal wall out, and try and push those fingers out of that little cavity that you just created. It's hard for me to do that and talk at the same time. So that feeling, that is bracing. And you really want to brace when you're paddling, when you're doing squats, when you're doing lunges, when you're doing push-ups, all those types of movements. If you brace your core first actively, like think about it and do it, you will perform much better. You will be able to lift heavier loads. You will have more power through your stroke in the water. You will just, everything will get fired up. Bracing activates the entire core. It stabilizes the spine from all angles and positions. So it's a really fantastic way to prepare your body for load and for resisted movement like paddling, right? So that is bracing. The opposite of bracing is hollowing, and hollowing is the one that, you know, most exercises and instructors have said you should do, that you should pull your belly button in towards your spine before you do a type of movement, a core movement, a crunch, or whatever. That is not the case. You really need to know the difference between which exercises require a bracing activation of the core versus the hollowing one. The drink. And so just like we tried bracing, where you're pushing your belly button away from your spine to brace for a belly punch, hollowing, you're pulling that belly button in towards your spine. So you can do it standing up, sitting down. It's better when you're lying down, and you're gonna exhale deeply, and then you pull in your belly button towards your spine. If you've ever pulled on a tight pair of jeans and tried to zip them up, you have done hollowing. So it's that type of motion, that type of movement and feeling. You can still breathe when you're hollowing, right? It's not like you breathe in and you hold it and nothing else happens. You actually exhale, pull in your belly button towards your spine, and that activates the abdomen in a different way. It activates one major muscle rather than the full trunk like bracing does. And that muscle is the transverse abdominis, which is a major trunk flexor. It also protects your organs. You know, we don't really often think about all the internal stuff either, but so that's hollowing, and that is used in exercises like a hollow body hold. It's a pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, it's an obvious one, right? The exercise has the type of core activation built right into the name of it. So that's hollowing versus bracing. And I challenge you next time you're out paddling to try the two exercises, to try the two ways of activating your core, bracing and hollowing as you paddle. So first, do nothing, just paddle and let your core just be floppy is how I tend to call it. Just not engaged, not activated, nothing, just loose, and see how that affects your paddling. Then try hollowing your core and try paddling that way and see how that feels, what difference it makes. And then try bracing your core. Actively think about it, brace your core, and I bet you will be blown away if you've never done this. If you're not used to bracing your core when you paddle, you will feel so much more powerful. You will feel so much more connected. You will feel stronger. You will be able to keep that pressure on the paddle the entire way through the stroke. You'll be able to get that exit, that snappy exit that I teach anyway. You'll be really able to notice a huge difference. So try that out. Let me know how it feels, but that is one direct application of bracing and hollowing on your sport, on your performance. So as we go through the challenge, bracing exercises are going to include things like the push-up, a mountain climber, and hollowing exercises are going to be Superman, a hollow body hold, which I just mentioned, and a plank is a hollowing exercise as well. So for the push-up, I used to be an advocate of teaching push-ups or teaching push-up progression or starting on your knees. I no longer subscribe to that theory for multiple reasons. The biggest of which is that it doesn't engage your core in the proper way. So if you can't do a full push-up, and there's no shame in that, they are very hard to do properly. And there's actually a whole system to them. What you're going to do is a slow descend push-up. And that's going to teach you the core stability and work on your chest and arm strength to be able to then push yourself up from the ground in that full body, full plank push-up position that you're aiming for. So when you're doing your push-up, you want to keep your elbows, your arms close to your body. We don't want them out here. Think of if somebody comes up to you and you want to push them away, you're not going to have your arms out here, right? It's not a strength base. It's not a position of power. You're going to bring your arms in. You're going to have your hands at your shoulders, and you're going to push away like that. That is the principle of a push-up. So you also want to make sure that your pinkies are slightly turned out. Watch my elbows. As I turn my pinkies, that brings my elbows in. If you turn your pinkies in, that brings your elbows out, and that is not a position of power or position of strength. So you're going to place your hands on the floor, pinkies out. Hands are just about under your shoulders. You're going to get into that nice push-up position, plank position, whatever you want to call it. And nice straight spine. So your bum's not up here. It's not sagging down here. Your knees are not on the floor. Nice straight line. And you're just going to slowly lower yourself down as slowly as possible until you reach the floor. From here, you've got your hands right at your sides, right around your boob level. Just push yourself up any way possible. Doesn't have to be elegant, doesn't have to be pretty. Get yourself back into that plank position. And again, descend slowly all the way to the ground. Resist that descent, and that will teach you to have that strong core, that full body activation, so that you can eventually build up the strength to push yourself back up. So no knees, okay? No knees. We're away from that. You can also do an incline push-up. You can do this in the morning while you're waiting for your coffee at your kitchen counter. Just put your hands on that, slide your feet back, and do it with your upper body elevated. That is also a great way to teach push-up strength. But from the slow descend push-up or that countertop elevated push-up, the next progression would be a hand release push-up. So you are in that push-up position, pinkies out, you get yourself to the floor, you take your hands off the floor for a tiny little bit, doesn't have to be high, just release the pressure, and then you're going to lift yourself back up again, okay? If you can't do it a full one, same thing, just come to the floor, release your hands, push yourself up any way that you can, get back into the starting position, and go again. So those are your two push-up progressions. Oh, I'm out of breath. Okay, next is a mountain climber. So the first one is going to be a walking mountain climber. And by that, I mean slow and intentional movement. So you're in your plank position, you've braced your core, and you bring one knee up, then down, the other knee forward and down, okay? To add difficulty to this, to progress the mountain climber, you can speed it up. You can run it, or you can jump it. I'm not good, well, I'll show you what I mean by jumping. You can either start running it, right, speed it up, or you alternate your feet by jumping. You can also take opposite knee and aim it to the opposite elbow for a cross-body mountain climber. So those are your options for leveling up. For hollowing, you're going to do a Superman, and your first level 1 progression is you're laying flat on the ground, head forward. Well, of course it's forward. Your arms at your sides, palms up, and just simply try and raise your chest and arms off the floor. Your head, chest, and arms slightly off the floor. Second, you can add your legs, and you're aiming to get this thigh area off the ground. It's not going to come off the ground completely, but you're going to feel it release a little bit. So from here, you're going to lift legs and torso at the same time. To level it up, you're going to reach your arms out in front of you like Superman and lift up and down. Now just be careful that you're not just bending your knees when you're lifting your legs off the ground. You really want to try and keep them straight, activate your core and those flexors and extensors, and lift the whole line, the whole combination off the floor. Okay, and then a hollow hold. So it's a Superman in reverse. You're going to lie down on the floor, and your first progression is just to lift your head, shoulders, and back off the floor, keeping your feet on the floor. So you're just going to lift and hold right here for whatever the workout duration says. The next progression you're going to try is to extend your feet and arms. No, extend your feet, and you're just going to lift both off the floor. Okay, it's normal to try and that you're going to shake, and if you can only keep it up for 10 seconds, that's fine. If you need a little break, but you don't want to come out of the movement entirely, you can bend your knees a little bit, and that will help. And then just extend again to get into that hold. And then if that's too easy or you're a pro, you will put your arms above your head, hollow your body. So bring that belly button into your spine, and you're going to lift your arms, keeping your forearms at your ears. And you're going to lift your legs off the floor at the same time. So you're going to look like a banana, a regular non-deformed banana. You're going to look a little bit like a banana. So this is kind of what you're going to look like. Again, your arms, your forearms, your biceps are at your ears. They're not up here. They're not way down here. You're not like this. This is not doing what the purpose of the hollow hold is. It needs to be just a couple of inches off the ground. Your back, your shoulder blades are off the ground, and you're holding it for the duration specified. Again, if it starts to get hard, let's say the challenge is to keep your hold for 6 minutes, 30 seconds, and that's too much, bend your legs a little bit, then re-extend and continue the hold. And then the final exercise is that active plank that I mentioned at the very, very beginning, where whether you are in a full extended plank, like with your arms like this, or you're on your elbows like this, nice straight line all the way from your head to your heels, you're going to imagine that there's a crack in the earth, and you need to repair that crack with just your own core strength. And so you're going to be actively trying, you're not actually moving. Your elbows, your hands, and your feet are not moving at all. Your core is absorbing that action, that activity, and you're trying to close the gap by actively pulling your elbows and toes together, but you're not physically moving. It's all concentrated right here. So those are your bracing and hollowing exercises, examples. And they're also multifunctional, and they're stabilizing. They are both dynamic, some are static, and that's what we're going to dive into now. So dynamic exercises consist of things like air squats, a bear crawl, and a marching glute bridge. The static versions of those exercises are a wall sit, a bulldog, and a glute bridge hold. So let's work with the static exercises first. The wall sit and the bulldog are both bracing exercises. So you're going to brace, extend that belly button away from the spine for those. And a wall sit is basically just you come up to a wall, you push your feet as far as you need to away from the wall so that you can get your thighs parallel to the floor. So your leg is making a right angle. Your back is fully pressed against the wall, and you just sit here. You know, you can read a book, you can tell a joke, you can have a conversation with a friend, but this is the position for a wall sit. And when you're done with it, you just push off and release. A squat, as you undoubtedly know, you're just coming up and down into that same wall sit position. I'm not going to do too many because again, I'll be off screen and that's just going to look weird. But you really want to sit your butt back as if there's a chair behind you. And if you find yourself tipping forward at any point or your heels coming off the floor, first of all, make sure you're not wearing trainers, like running trainers that already elevate your heel off the floor. Wear a flat shoe or do it barefoot. But if you find yourself tipping forward, get a chair behind you and try and aim your butt for that chair. It's basically as if you're sitting on the toilet, sitting into a chair, sitting down on the couch. That is what you're aiming for. So you're going to drive with your heels. If anything, lift up your toes and wiggle them. That will give you confirmation that you're doing it right. Don't pitch forward. Try and keep your upper body nice and straight and just sit down and sit up. For a bulldog, you're going to get into that table position that we did earlier for our bird dog. Again, set yourself by lifting up your hands and your feet and getting yourself into a comfortable position. Your back should be flat, so you don't want to be curved like this. You don't want to be curved the opposite way. Nice flat back. And from here, you're going to curl your toes underneath you as if you're going to push up into like a downward facing dog, but you're not going to go any further than lifting your knees about an inch from the floor. And that is where you stay. That is your bulldog. It looks super easy. Give it 10 seconds and it will be really hard. To turn that into a bear crawl, same setup position. You get your knees an inch off the floor and then you crawl forward and back without lifting your knees further up off the floor. You can also go sideways. You can go in any direction that you like. Just keep those knees an inch or less off the floor. And then our last pairing, dynamic versus static, is our marching glute bridge and our glute bridge hold. Now these are hollowing exercises. So you're gonna lie down on the floor, back straight, arms at your sides. You're going to keep your feet flat on the floor. And to make this more difficult, you're gonna slide your feet closer or further away from you. So the further away your feet are, the more difficult this is. So for the static glute bridge hold, you're just going to anchor those feet, drive into your heels, lift up. And you're going to squeeze your glutes and you'll feel it in your hamstring and you will just hold that static motion. I'm getting a cramp in my thigh. This is great. You're just going to hold that motion, that lift for the time specified. Keep squeezing the glutes, keep squeezing the hamstrings to try and lift up ever more closer to the ceiling. For the marching glute bridge, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to lift up and then you're going to march your feet up and down without letting your bum come down to the floor, okay? So that is your dynamic versus your static exercises. Now, those also bring us into an area of core training that adds instability. Adding instability activates your focus muscles plus your stabilizer muscles in a different way. It makes the movements more challenging. It allows you to progress, to lift heavier, to do all those things that we talked about earlier. And it also sort of cements the mind-muscle connection and focus. And the easiest way to add instability to an exercise is just remove an ankle point, right? So you just saw it on the bear crawl. When you lift, your hands and your feet are forward, you're adding instability. When doing the glute bridge, you lift up one leg and then the other to march in place, you're adding instability. And other ways of adding instability, for example, are fire hydrants. So, think of you're in your table position and your dog peeing on a fire hydrant. You lift your leg to the side and back down. So from this angle, it simply looks like this. You're lifting, you're opening up the hips, you're peeing on the fire hydrant. When you're done, you come back down. That is one example of adding instability. For push-ups, when push-ups get really easy, you can add instability by using a yoga block, for example, and you can elevate one hand and instead of the other and just do your push-ups this way. You can also use a ball, which adds a second level and degree of instability because it could roll at any moment. So you really press into it and do your push-ups with that. You can do them all on one side and then switch and do, all your reps on the other, or you can switch between push-ups as well. You can also use a Bosu ball for your push-ups. You can put the Bosu ball out in front of you. It's wobbly. Get into your push-up position and go from here. It's going to really challenge your core to do it on this unstable surface. Even a plank with a Bosu ball adds instability. So there's lots of methods for doing that. If you don't have extra equipment, just get into a plank position and tapping your shoulders. Doing plank taps adds instability in a really fantastic way. So there's lots of options, and I'll include some in the 5-day challenge. So that brings me to the end of this training. Look at that, 2:58. I did it in an hour. I said I was going to do it in about an hour, and here we are. I'm so glad I made that. So if you're in for the challenge, and if I have your email, if you're already on my email list, you will get the first email tomorrow. If you don't want to do it, just delete it. Just know that there will be daily emails coming about the challenge. And I encourage you to do it because it's really important to build up our strong core so that we can stay active for as long as possible, doing the things we love, not having pain, not having that sudden twinge of, oh shit, I pulled a muscle, when you're just reaching into the cabinet for a can of beans or a wine glass, right? That just sucks. So I encourage everybody to do this challenge, to work on your core. And again, it's going to be 10 to 15 minutes a day. You can do this solo. It can be the only training that you do per day, or you can add it to your cardio or strength program, either at the beginning or the end, your choice. But just, it's not onerous. It's not much. You could probably even do some of them in bed before you get up in the morning. But again, it's hard to warm up and then go back into bed just to do these. So probably not the best idea. So that's it. As I said, in my full program, I teach 5 progressions for every exercise. You're going to get 2 with it so that we can keep it simple and actually get feeling some results over 5 days or 6 days. And that is it. That's what I've got for you. I'm so excited. Thank you for sticking with me for this hour. and look for the email tomorrow. If you have any questions, again, put them in the comments. I didn't see them. I'm also trying to focus on getting you the information. But if you have questions, comments, concerns, if you need a modification because you have a weak wrist or a shoulder issue, let me know and I will modify the challenge for you so that you can do or keep pace with everybody else. And that's it. I look forward to getting you in there and hearing how you do. So have a great rest of your Saturday. I hope it's nice enough outside that you can get out and enjoy it. I think it's still pouring here, but I'm hopeful that it's going to let up and I can go for a nice walk with the dog and enjoy your afternoon. Okay, I'll talk to you soon and I'll see you in the group. Ciao.